What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, we've got a two-gamer. We've got a Millie Maker for the main slate. Hey, man, it's Championship Sunday. Feels like it, feels like this crept up on us pretty quick. What are your thoughts on this season so far, man? Started out a little slow, some bad games, but as we've gone along, man, it's really picked up quite a bit.
I guess the strongest take that I have on the season as a whole is that it ended on such a high note on that one primetime game that I just hope the NFL doesn't start thinking that they nailed it this season. Yeah. They need to revisit their scheduling and make sure that we're not seeing all these teams that are going to have a top 5 draft pick playing every primetime game next year.
Yeah, exactly.
But other than that, man, I'm excited for this. I'm really excited for this AFC Championship rematch, to be honest. And, it's going to be a lot of fun watching Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes go head-to-head again.
So obviously we're covering the two-game main slate here. We do have individual shows for Showdown. If you guys are interested in doing showdowns on Draftkings, if you click, I'm backwards here. Where am I at? Over there? Yeah, there it is. I'm gonna put I'll put that card up on the screen right now if you guys want to check those shows out. Also, at the end of the show, when you're done, if you want to go back and watch some of those individual shows, check that out. As well as, hey, join the Discord. It's free. Why not? So, Ellie, what are we thinking here, man? Eagles are favored by 2.5, and the biggest news here is since we did that show the other day, that Bengals and Chiefs show, the line has moved. Now the Chiefs are favored by 1 when the Bengals were favored by 1. When we didn't, at that point, we had just saw Patrick Mahomes kind of had, he went out and he practiced. We recorded that right after he had a full practice. And hey, things have adjusted. He's got 2 straight games with a full practice. He's definitely going to play. It seems like it's not as big of a deal. They're making it not a big deal, but it is a big deal. It really is. So what are your thoughts on this movement here with the Chiefs now favored?
So first off, the Niners Eagles, I think I'm going to stick with our showdown prediction. I think I had 22-16 with Philly winning that. I don't really have any strong takes on any changes there. But yeah, you're right on. I think, look, there's a couple things to be optimistic here if you're the Chiefs fan or just a fan of good football. Pat Mahomes, he's practiced 2 days in a row, full practice, no issues.
Yeah.
He's a psychopath. I don't know. Some of these guys are just built differently, and
he is.
Maybe he's getting shots of Ebol, and all a bunch of different steroids
Ebola?
And morphine at the same time. No, Ebol, man, it's a steroid. It's what they took. I think Mark McGuire can tell you a little bit about it, but yeah, I mean, if he's trending upwards, I do want to clarify a point while we're on it. In the showdown video, if you go back and watch it or watched it already, I had the Chiefs winning 17-13 in a defensive battle. If Patrick Mahomes is anywhere, if he's 70% to play this game, I don't expect this to be a defensive matchup. Yeah. So let me be clear there. I just think that there's a different game plan in place if he has a bad high ankle sprain. And then just real quick, one last point is, I think I said on that show also, if you can get the Chiefs at plus money in the AFC Championship game, you need to try and get on it. I mean, it took less than 24 hours. We recorded that a day ago, right? And it's already shifted. So, that could be something to take into account here as well. Maybe don't get too high on Pat Mahomes and his health. It could have just been literally everybody and their mother were slamming the money line because the Chiefs were at plus money. So that can shift a little bit of these totals a little bit. So
I look, I'm rooting, I love Patrick Mahomes. So, at the end of the day, I'm picking the Bengals to win this game. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch this game, obviously. I'm picking the Bengals. But if I'm wrong, hey, shit, we're win-win because we get to watch Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I would love to see Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, obviously. I just feel like the Bengals, I feel like Joe Burrow, I feel like they're on a roll. And, hey, man, if they can find a way to put some pressure on the Chiefs, on Patrick Mahomes, this Bengals defensive line, I really think that that's their best path to winning this game. If they put some pressure on him, hey, I think it's over. I really do. All right, let's look at these. Let's look at all these numbers here. So first game, San Francisco going into Philly. That's gonna be a tough game, man. San Francisco, I picked them to lose last week against the Cowboys. Cowboys should have won that game. They had plenty of opportunities to win that game. Purdy, did enough to win him the game. Hey, congrats. But he's going to need to do a lot more against this Philly defense. He's got two incredible corners he's going against that probably can lock down Ayuk and Debo. So he's going to have to find ways to get different. But San Francisco has, like, both of these teams have incredible coaching, so we don't have to worry about any bullshit, bad calls or weird clock management. If the teams are going to lose, it's going to be the players on the field, which is going to be nice to see. So what are your thoughts on this Philly game? I know we sort of talked about it, but Philly's ownership here, look at the ownership there. That's quite a bit higher than San Francisco. As of right now, we're recording this on Thursday night, but San Francisco being the lowest owned team, that's a little strange. I know it's probably a lot has to do with Purdy being the lowest owned quarterback, so that definitely hurts them. But what are your thoughts here? And are you interested in going heavy on San Francisco at all in some of these tournament stacks?
So I'll answer that last question first. Absolutely, Brock Purdy is priced so low, and his ownership is so low that it doesn't make sense to not try to get exposure to him, right? He's coming in at less than 10% owned, and I get that you have Joe Burrow, Hurts, and Pat Mahomes on the slate, but you could probably run. You can't really do a naked Purdy, but you can run Brock Purdy and jam in damn near as many studs as you want. So I like him. I think the Niners are going to give you some leverage, and they're going to score some points. And one thing that we did see throughout the year, Philly did struggle a little bit stopping the run. And I think we saw a little bit last week. Kyle Shanahan kind of started off with more of a conservative game script than we've seen since Brock Purdy has been the starting quarterback. So that might be something to keep in mind, but his price is nice either way. But the ownership is interesting too, because there's a couple guys that I immediately want from San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey being the obvious, but I want as much exposure to Deebo Samuel and George Kittle as I can, right?
Yes.
So, just if this first look is giving us any indication that these guys are going to be on their own, then sign me up for playing some of the most elite yak guys that there are in the NFL.
Absolutely. And, look, this is the last game of the year for everybody. That's the mentality coming into this. And San Francisco, I promise you, they got some tricks up their sleeve, man. And I fully expect to see some crazy shit in this game from San Francisco, especially if they're down. If they're losing this game, they're gonna pull out some crazy shit. What happens when crazy shit happens? Deebo Samuel usually happens. That's why I'm pretty damn interested in him. So Cincinnati going into KC, obviously, look, playing in Kansas City, that's tough. That's going to be very, very tough. But if anybody can do it, it's Joe Burrow. It's the Cincinnati Bengal team. 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. That's a huge deal. They beat him last year to get to the Super Bowl. I think they're going to do it again. It's a 47.5 point total. Looks like Cincinnati is going to be the highest owned team in this one. KC is, I think the biggest deal here with KC is the fact that they don't really have, honestly, they don't really have a stud wide receiver. They got Kelsey, but the Bengals are pretty damn good against tight ends. And I feel like there's an opportunity if they really sell out and try to shut down Kelsey. It's going to be hard for guys like Juju and MVS and maybe Kadarius Toney to really do a whole lot, because I just feel like they're just not they're not set up to rely on their wide receivers like they were last year. So what are your thoughts on this total here? 47.5, only 1 point higher than this San Francisco game. I feel like that first game in Philly is going to be a little bit lower scoring in my opinion, and this Cincinnati KC game, especially if Patrick Mahomes is 60-70%, I feel like that this hits the over. That's just my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. He's practiced this week and he looks like he's ready to go. So I want to clarify again, when you guys go back and watch the showdown video, that was me building with the high ankle sprain. I was scared shitless that he's probably not going to be able to play. That's a 4 to 6 week injury. It's been 24, 48 hours. And my opinion on this has changed. I do think that Kansas City can still win. But I think that we're closer to that 47.5 and probably going over. And just one other thing, I want to kind of talk about a narrative that I am interested in. I don't necessarily buy the 3-0, Joe Burrow 3-0 against the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Or Pat Mahomes. The quarterbacks don't play each other, and Pat Mahomes can only do so much when you give up a last second touchdown or whatever in those situations. So, but there is one thing that I think is working in the Bengals' favor is that home field advantage. It really comes down to something that matters now, right? Kansas City kind of lucked into it, given the DeMar Hamlin situation. I don't want to make it sound like I'm being insensitive to that, so feelings for all that. But look, Cincinnati feels slighted that they weren't considered for home field advantage. If they won that game, there's there's a tie between them and Kansas City. Like I do think that there's an opportunity for them to have some seating there. So just like what Joe Burrow said at the end of the game last week, better get your refunds. I just think they have a chip on their shoulder for being overlooked, even if they weren't not necessarily able to get that one seed, which I don't know off the top of my head. I would have
you better send those refunds.
Yeah, exactly, man. When you have a team that feels like they've been slighted, it has a talent like this, that does make up for a scary thing.
Yeah.
But one last thing, we'll get to this on wide receiver a little bit more. I do want to talk about Eli Apple, and I think that there's going to be some secondary wide receivers that you can look at from Kansas City Chiefs to take advantage of that burnt toast.
Yeah. Look, the Bengals are on a 10-game win streak. During that period, 28 points per game on offense, 18.5 points per game on defense. They're on a roll, man. I'm not convinced that they're going to lose the rest of this year. I think they win the Super Bowl. I think they win this game. But look, hey, you can never count out Patrick Mahomes. I'm fully aware that there's a chance that Patrick Mahomes comes out and plays incredible. All right, let's get to our injuries here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
So I don't have a real comprehensive list here, but CMC is going to play. He practiced. Debo, he'll play. Hayden Hurst, it's a little bit of a different story. He's questionable. He was added to the injury report on Thursday, earlier today. That kind of worries me. It's a calf injury. And remember, he had that calf injury in December where he missed like 3 games. So the fact that he's added to the injury report on Thursday, we're going to have to monitor this because he's a great value. He's a great play. He's $3K. He's going to be pretty popular. If he's out, we're going to have to figure out what to do there. Eli Mitchell also kind of worries me here. So he's questionable. He hasn't practiced. So to me, that kind of worries me. But there's also a quote here from Shanahan. I expect them to be available for the conference championship, but there are no guarantees. Especially being the NFC Championship game, I think there's a better chance they'll be ready since there's nothing guaranteed after this. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed. That was referring to, the holy trinity of McCaffrey, Debo, and Eli. So what are your thoughts on Eli, man? Like if he's out, that opens up value for us. If he's in, I'm definitely interested in him as well, especially considering there's a calf injury for McCaffrey. We don't know if what if McCaffrey gets like 10% less of snaps or 15, 20% less snaps, and you see more red zone opportunities for a guy like Eli Mitchell. What do we do here, man? What are your thoughts on those guys? And then we'll get to the Chiefs here in a second.
I think the Niners are going to do all our work for us on this one. If he's active and good to go, they're not playing him in the NFC Championship game unless he's good to go. So if he plays, I like him. I think you can handcuff him with McCaffrey, like we said a while ago. But even just as a pivot off of McCaffrey, he's going to be less than 15% owned. So I don't mind taking a couple stabs on him. But if he's out, obviously Christian McCaffrey gets a little bit more of a boost, but I think you got to look at whoever is active in his place on both showdown and on this main slate. They're all going to be the min price. Showdown, they'll be $200. On the main slate, they'll be 4K. So I am maybe slightly less interested on the 2-gamer, but I will have some exposure to whoever replaces Eli Mitchell.
Yeah.
But again, because you can punt at tight end, like if Hayden Hurst is out, for example, you'll have Mitchell Wilcox starting at tight end for $2,500, which is still a better punt than the backup to Eli Mitchell or whoever fills his role. So you just got to kind of keep an eye on that. And we'll be updating the Discord and stuff as we get closer to lock. And we'll be answering any questions that you have on stuff like that, because these guys are probably going to be the difference between being able to solo ship something and not.
One advantage I feel like we have as traditionally showdown players, is we would dig deep into some of these backups and value plays that most people aren't aware of. A lot of people that are going to be playing this weekend, throwing into these big ass, 160, 170,000 entry tournaments. They're casuals. They're going to play all of the guys that they know, and they're not going to play these backups and dudes that are like buried down on the salary. So that's one thing to keep in mind here. This is a 2-gamer. It's, hey, it's main slate showdown kind of hybrid. So take advantage of some of these like second string, third string wide receivers, backup tight ends, backup running backs that you would probably never play if you're playing like a normal regular main slate. All right, so let's get to some narratives here. I guess we've kind of already sort of talked through this. But we can talk a little bit, more of a bird's eye view on some of these matchups here. So, you know what? Injury wise, left tackle Jonah Williams and guard Alex Kappa remain out of practice. So as of right now, it looks like those backups are still going to be playing for the Bengals, which, hey, on paper, that seems to be a huge deal, especially, going against this Kansas City pass rush, which is pretty impressive. One of the top pass rushes in the league. But it usually doesn't translate into anything else on this defense. They're not very good across the board besides that. So does that concern you at all with the Bengals?
Not necessarily, man. After what we saw last week, I think that if you look at them as far as individual pieces go on that offensive line and that defense, you have some questions. Like Eli Apple, you have questions about him individually, but it seems like they work pretty cohesively as a unit. Again, they've just been jiving the past 10 weeks. I'm using some pretty weird lingo today, man. We'll just keep it up. But yeah, man, they've been rolling with it. So I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting game. I am really excited. Obviously, I'm more excited for that game than I am the Niners Eagles. I hate the Niners though. So
well, hey, Cardinals fan, we're just haters at this point. All right, let's get into our breakdown here. Break it down. All right, so we've got Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes at the top as far as salary. Patrick Mahomes is the most expensive quarterback here. Actually, I'm going to sort by salary. My bad. So Patty Mahomes,
I'm here.
He's 7,600. Jalen Hurts 7,200. Joe Burrow.
You better send those refunds.
68, and Brock Purdy. Look at that. Look how cheap this motherfucker is. 5,300. That's tempting, man. So what do we do here? Obviously, the quarterbacks are going to start all of our thought process when it comes to the rest of our roster and stacking and also running back with the opposing game potentially. So where are you leaning? It looks like to me as of now this probably could change as we start to see more, about how Patrick Mahomes is feeling, seeing some more footage of him walking around. He's going to be like maybe 5 to 10% higher owned than Brock Purdy. That seems very low owned. And I know in the showdown slate, I was kind of talking about fading Patrick Mahomes just because of the way that showdown slate is set up. It's almost impossible to really get a balanced roster if you're trying to get a lot of the studs in. So, but in this case, if he's like 20% owned, I'm interested in him for this main slate. Do you agree with me on that?
yeah, absolutely, man. We talked about it on the Showdown show. If I think he's fadeable if he's coming in heavy jock, but if he's just severely underowned, I mean, he's still Patrick Mahomes. I think that you're fine playing him, and I'll probably be double the field. Look, I'll probably have 30 to 35% exposure on Mahomes, and then my next favorite would probably be Joe Burrow. But look, if Mahomes is underowned, I may end up with like 50, 60, 75% of it, man. There's just no reason for him to be low owned.
Well, look, this would be a good hedge for me if I'm fading him in showdown. Go heavy with him in main slate. That could work out for me. Or what I'll probably end up doing for showdown is just playing Patty Mahomes at captain in cash. But look, one thing to bring up here is this matchup against the Bengals. Now, traditionally, we're not really thinking that Bengals are an incredible defense, but look, man, the Bengals defense has held quarterbacks this year to the lowest rating in the NFL. Look, it's Patrick Mahomes. Most likely he's not going to have like just a dog shit game. But there's something to say about that. The corners have been good. Their defense has looked good. So during this 10-game win streak. So I don't know, man. I really think that the Bengals have found a way to get to Patrick Mahomes despite the fact that their offense, the Kansas City offensive line has looked pretty damn impressive. Last week, he didn't even get touched against the Jaguars. But the Bengals earlier this year, when they played in week 13, they had 2 sacks and like 8 quarterback hits, and they won. They won that game. So my point here is, if Cincinnati can get pressure on Patrick Mahomes and actually successfully get pressure, that's where I think the Patrick Mahomes maybe has a below average game, and that's why Cincinnati wins. Now, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, he's 7,200. He's going up against a tough defense, but he has that rushing upside. That is very interesting to me. When it comes to cash, he'll probably be, it's possible he'll be the highest owned guy there, and probably sorry, we lost Ellie for a second, but don't worry, don't go anywhere. Jalen Hurts will probably be that optimal sort of cash guy. But to me, I like Joe Burrow at 6,800 for cash. That is just because of that price tag. He's $400 cheaper, and as we'll see when we start to build here for cash, it's going to be a big deal. That $400 is a huge deal. That's the difference between getting a really good running back and maybe just an average running back. And then we got Brock Purdy, man. Hey, what are your thoughts, Ellie? Do you hear me, Ellie? You there?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on playing Brock Purdy in cash and just stacking up on a bunch of these studs in the flex?
Just for the record, I need to say that that's probably not the greatest idea because he's going to be so low owned, but I'd fucking do it, man. 5,300, like getting 12 points from him, which is almost like 10 to 12 is guaranteed. Like he'll pay out 5,300. If that's the difference between having McCaffrey, Mixon, Chase, and Kittle, Kelsey, write some weird ass stack with all the studs, like go for it, bro. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look. See all this green, but at least 15 fantasy points, and obviously he had that great game against Seattle. He didn't have the best week last week, but he's got you at least 15 fantasy points in the majority of these games. And at that price tag, if he can get you 16, 17 fantasy points, and those points come in the pass game and you stack it correctly, hey man, 5,300, that just buys you so much, man. It's $1,500 that you're going to need it with the rest of those positions. All right, so anything else to talk about here with these quarterbacks? Who's going to be your highest owned guy, you think, as of right now?
As of right now, it's Joe Burrow. But if I keep seeing Patrick Mahomes come in low owned, he will be my highest owned, just easily. And then one quick comment on Jalen Hurts. Obviously, you can play him. Dude's got rushing touchdown upside. He could have mediocre passing day. If he has 100 rushing and a touchdown, he will be optimal. But again, I think I just prefer the savings go down to Joe Burrow, who has similar rushing upside, not quite the same that Hurts does, but he can get a rushing touchdown too.
Yeah, I mean Joe Burrow. I mean, if you look at some of these rushing stats, 30 yards. He's in a 46-yard game and a touchdown. If he scores a rushing touchdown in this game, he's probably going to be the optimal guy. I mean, basically any guy that if there's one guy that scores a rushing touchdown and the rest of these quarterbacks don't, it's going to be hard to overcome that. Running backs. All right, so CMC, 8K. He's $1,500 more expensive than Joe Mixon at $6,500. Let's talk about these two guys. These are going to be the two highest owned running backs. And honestly, it's interesting. I'm looking at some of this projected ownership here. It looks like Christian McCaffrey is like less than 5% higher owned than Joe Mixon. Does that surprise you at all?
Not really, to be honest with you. I just think that everybody's going to be so stuck on these two guys. I think the Kansas City backfield is a little bit unpredictable, and Philly the same way. Like these are the two guys that we know are going to get consistent work and consistent run. So I really did expect to see both of them around 50-55% owned. But I also think that it's an easy point of leverage because I know you want to talk about C-Mac and Joe Mixon, but I love Isaiah Pacheco, man. Like we talked about it on the Showdown show. Jerick McKinnon's coming damn near. Like some sites, he's getting almost 50% ownership, right? So, pivoting down to a guy who's going to be 15 to 20% owned, who's projected for damn near the same amount of points, will start. And I mean, look, if you look at his numbers, he literally needs one touchdown, and it's a completely different output over the past several weeks.
Yeah.
Last week he had touchdowns over the past couple of weeks, but I missed it last week. He gets one. 5 more yards is 2 more points. 1 touchdown is another 6, right? So he's right there. He's getting the trust of Andy Reid, and that says a lot. And he hasn't been fumbling. So, you know, that matters to this offense.
His explosiveness and just the intensity he brings. When you watch him run the ball after he gets up from getting a first down, he's really pumping his team up. I think that's contagious. And if you look at this, 9.7 fantasy points since week 11, that was his lowest output. And you're right. If he has one of these games where he doesn't get a vulture touchdown from one of these other Chiefs guys, he's crushing. Nobody's talking about this guy. It's not a bad matchup going up against the Bengals. And, hey, there's a situation where they really rely on this guy because Patrick Mahomes is not going to be able to move around much. Maybe they try to establish that run a little bit more, open up that play action to go deep to some of these guys like MVS. I really love him. And I think people are going to sleep on him. If you really think about it and you look at these starters, right? You got CMC, Mixon, Sanders, and then, obviously McKinnon's in there. He's like he's going to be the lowest owned starter by far. And that makes me really interested in him, especially in lineups where I'm not playing Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to be interested in getting some Pacheco because if he steals 1 or maybe 2 touchdowns from Mahomes, that's going to be huge. But having him is going to be incredibly huge. Now let's talk about some of these other guys here. So obviously I'm not super interested in McKinnon. Look, I'm a McKinnon lover traditionally, going back into the beginning of last year. I was playing him when he was $200 on showdown slates. But now I feel like, he's overachieving quite a bit. He's a good player, but there's no reason for him to have scored 9 touchdowns this year, as a running back catching the ball. Over time, as you're starting to see some of these outputs go down. Now, is that defenses just kind of saying, screw this guy, we're not letting McKinnon beat us? I don't know. But some of these touchdowns that he's able to get is mostly just Mahomes going, ape shit and doing some of these crazy, scramble moves in the red zone. He's not getting those opportunities in this game because he's probably going to be in the pocket. So, look, besides McKinnon, what are your thoughts on these other guys? Miles Sanders, man, that guy they stole touchdowns from him. Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott scored touchdowns. Boston Scott's 4,600. Kenneth Gainwell's 4,800. I'm not interested in those guys at all. This is the San Francisco 49ers. You have a second and third string running backs who probably get 20 to 30% of the snaps, and they're priced up 4,800 and 4,600. They should be 4K. And if they were 4K, I'd probably maybe I'd sprinkle them in a little bit. But what do we do about these 3 running backs from Philadelphia going up against it's a tough matchup for them?
I'm pulling Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott out of my lineups. They're not going to be in my player pool at all. I do like Miles Sanders, 5,200. Everybody knows that it's just questionable whether or not he's going to get those touchdowns. But I just have a feeling it's either going to be him or Hurts. One of those 2 guys is going to have 2 rushing touchdowns on Sunday. It's just the easiest. We talk about this on almost every show. The easiest way to keep elite offensive weapons off the field is to establish an effective run game. And what Philly's been doing all season long is running the ball a shitload. Yeah. They run out of RPOs, and that's just going to set them up a lot. So I do think Miles Sanders or Jalen Hurts ends up with 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's something that I'm going to be building around. And at 5,200, man, I like him and Isaiah Pacheco. I just think are great plays at the running back position. Obviously, you want to get Christian McCaffrey and you want Joe Mixon, but you got to find places to punt too. And sometimes this may not be the slate where I have 80% exposure to Kadarius Toney. So
speak for
getting
yourself.
Some, yeah, exactly. But we gotta find guys that we might be a little bit more comfortable middling out. You don't necessarily need to run both of these 5,300, 5,200 guys. Maybe you stack Sanders and McCaffrey, right? Maybe you stack, and that's a weird stack, but it could work. But I think that he's definitely in play. I'm just not playing any Kenneth Gainwell or Boston Scott, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it looks like CEH is probably not going to be activated. I don't know if Ronald Jones will be active, probably as a third running back. I'm not interested in him at 4K. If this was showdown and he was $200, yeah, sprinkle in a couple of Ronald Jones, but at 4K, it just doesn't add up. The math just doesn't add up there. Samaje Perine is actually kind of popping when it comes to points per dollar. I am sort of interested in him. I don't know, man. Like, you could pivot slightly off of Joe Mixon. Like, if you're not playing Joe Mixon and you needed some value, maybe you could throw in a Samaje Perine. Any interest in him?
Sure. I mean, at 4,500, I don't think he's terrible. I think he's a similar play to Eli Mitchell. The only difference is Eli Mitchell, he was supposed to be the workhorse back at one point, right? We've seen his usage increase about 10 to 15% week over week since he's been back. Samaje Perine's going to get 25% of the snaps. He's going to get 2 to 3 targets a game, and maybe a handful of carries. So he's going to get some consistent run. I think he's viable at 4,500. I think it might even be worth maybe I just like handcuffing running backs, but I do think it might be fine running Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Mixon could easily have 120 rushing yards and no touchdowns, and Perine have both his touchdowns. So again, you're on a 2-gamer. You have the 2 running backs that everybody's going to be playing. Outside of that, you got to come up with creative reasons to kind of get to some of these other guys. I'm not saying expand your player pool to include all of these guys, but Perine, Eli Mitchell, and Sanders, guys that I'm interested in. Outside of that, I don't think I'll have anybody else outside the normal starters.
Let's go to wide receivers here. So Jamar Chase, 7,600. AJ Brown, 7K. Devontae Smith, 6,800. So that's your top tier as far as pricing goes. Then you got Deebo Samuel at 5,700, T. Higgins at 5,400. So look, Jamar Chase, since he came back from that injury, he's clearly the guy. Like, I love T. Higgins, but T. Higgins just hasn't quite been getting the volume that we've seen earlier in the year. Jamar Chase, man, I feel like if you aren't playing Jamar Chase, you're taking a huge risk in this game. I'd rather play Jamar Chase over CMC. I'd even rather play Jamar Chase over Kelsey in this matchup, and that's probably not a popular opinion, but that's the route I'm taking. And usually, CMC and Kelsey would be priority, and then you just kind of end up with whatever amount of Jamar Chase you can get. But for me, I'm going a ton of Burrow. That means I'm probably going to have a shitload of Chase as well. And even if I'm not going Burrow, he's going to be one of my main one-offs in stacking any of these other games. So what are your thoughts, man? Am I too crazy on Jamar Chase? Let's talk about these Bengals guys here. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins at 5,400, and then you got Tyler Boyd at 3,800. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of all the wide receivers on the slate, like as a collective group, they probably have the highest ceiling. I mean, each one of these guys can go off for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, Tyler Boyd including. We've seen it, and we know that they're going to get a lot of volume. I mean, I'm not sure what else to say. I'm going to be playing a shitload of Jamar Chase too. He's going to be as close to a lock as I have for Sunday.
Yes. Look at this. 15 targets, 13, 11, 13, 12, 8. I mean, just absolutely insane. That's not on accident. There's a reason why he's getting that many targets. And, he's been injured, and Justin Jefferson has been absolutely crushing. And, some of these other wide receivers have sort of taken the narrative over this year. But don't sleep on Jamar Chase. I think this is an opportunity. This is his Larry Fitzgerald moment to come out and absolutely dominate and make a name for himself and become legendary in these playoffs. So AJ Brown is 7K, Devontae Smith is 6,800. Those are really the only guys we need to talk about for Philly. Obviously, we got Quez Watkins, which is a good value play. But AJ Brown being only $200 more than Devontae Smith, I feel like right now Devontae Smith is the number one. Like, as far as his volume, AJ Brown to me has this reminds me. This sort of reminds me of last year's DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett situation. Except for that, we were always like, look, one of these guys always goes off, but both of them rarely do last year. In this situation, I think both of these guys can go off, and stacking Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith together is going to be unique because of the price of Dallas Goedert when we get to tight ends. Most of those stacks are going to involve Dallas Goedert and not both of these wide receivers. Are you interested in that at all? And what are your thoughts on these two guys? If you had to pick one guy, who are you picking?
I'm probably picking Devontae Smith. I got to back Alabama boys first. Alabama guys, Alabama players. I got to say that less awkwardly, but him and Jalen Hurts, they have a unique connection. They've been pretty on over the past couple of weeks, and I mean that volume's crazy. Now that's not to say that I think that he's any better than AJ Brown. AJ Brown is a stud himself. So both guys can absolutely go off. I lean a little bit more towards Devontae Smith because he's going to get a bunch of targets, especially if they start to get uncomfortable or if AJ Brown misses some snaps because of one of his hamstring injuries or whatever. Devontae Smith's going to be the guy that kind of benefits from that. Him and Jalen Hurts, they do have a really strong connection.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Deebo Samuel here. He's 5,700. We sort of talked about him already. I'm super interested in him. Him and Brandon Ayuk, 4,400. Now, they got a tough matchup going against these Philly corners here. But Deebo is not your traditional. He's not your traditional, wide receiver that hangs out on the outside. He's going to be moving around. He's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be put in motion. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to have a ton of opportunities for random plays. Both, maybe they utilize him as, sort of a run game alternative by just dumping the ball off to him behind the line of scrimmage. You gotta pay attention to Deebo at 5,700. I know he's coming off, he was injured earlier and it's not as sexy as it was last year, but man, 5,700, that is an absolutely crazy. He's probably the best point per dollar value on the slate when it comes to, his ceiling is so high. And look, Brandon Ayuk at 4,400, he's clearly the number one actual wide receiver. Purdy has been targeting him quite a bit. He's going to be one of these guys that's going to be like way under-owned in my opinion. He hasn't really had the best output the past few weeks, but we know what his ceiling is. So thoughts on these two guys here? Where are you headed? I mean, are you interested in like Ayuk or Deebo as one-offs? Probably Deebo, right? Are you interested in Ayuk as one-off?
Absolutely. I mean, 4,400, he's going to give you a little bit of flexibility. I think the interesting way to approach both these guys, though, is because Brandon Ayuk's probably still going to be around 25% owned, and Deebo should be 30 to 35% owned. And because they're priced so like generously, I don't think that many people are going to be playing them as one-offs. So I think stacking them with Brock Purdy is going to give you a lot of flexibility. Run them both, even throw in Kittle, right? Why not? All three of those can have touchdowns, but their price is soft enough with that, and then with their quarterback being priced at 5,300 or whatever it was as well, you might be able to jam in some pretty high-end studs. I mean, having a lineup with Purdy, Deebo, Chase, even Higgins, and then like Kelsey and Ayuk, like that's a pretty decent build. So I like these guys, and Deebo we know is going to end up with some rushing attempts. And here you talked about it pre-show. If Eli Mitchell really is limited, it is possible we don't see any RB2 carries. It could just be Deebo Samuel getting all that run.
Yes.
So that's something you need to pay attention to. We'll update obviously in the Discord. But Deebo just has so elite upside. He has immense upside because he lines up. They have no positions. This is positionless football on the Niners.
Yeah, totally, dude. All right, let's talk about Casey. So this is where things get interesting. Juju, 4,700. He's pretty cheap. He's the number one. He's technically the number one wide receiver on the best offense in the NFL, and he's $4,700. That doesn't really translate though, because he's not really getting the volume that you would expect from him. I am worried that in one of these situations he's going to have a breakout game. But look at that price tag. He's not that expensive. And if you want to use him and Kelsey together with Mahomes, yeah, fine. I know that last week I was sort of against it because he was priced up a little bit more, but now at this price tag, I'm not super interested in him, but I think you just can't forget about Juju because he's on the field, 90% of the time. Now, look, this is going to get me in trouble, man. But Kadarius Toney, I know he's going to have one of these breakout games where he gets like 25 fantasy points or something like that. He's $3,700. Yeah, he's not on the field a lot. I don't know if that's a smokescreen for using him for some of these gadget type plays or using him in different ways. For when they really need him. But man, I'm so interested in Kadarius Toney. It's going to be my downfall, I feel like. It could be my downfall or my triumph. But with a guy like Mecole Hardman probably not playing in this game. I think the latest check is he was doubtful. He's probably not playing. MVS 3,600, yeah, fine. MVS, he could have an absolutely big play, but he's not a volume guy. He's probably not going to get you more than 3 or 4 targets. And then look, you got Justin Watson at 3K bare minimum, and then you got Sky Moore. Look, some asshole put $500 on Sky Moore with DK Sportsbook to score 2+ touchdowns. That's a $55,000 payout. When I saw that, for a second, I was like, oh shit, did I like black out and make that bet? Like, was that me? Because I freaking love Sky Moore. I don't know why. There's no reason. There's really no reason. He's not on the field that much, but just the eye test, when I see Sky Moore, they really want to get him involved. But look, we got to choose one of these guys. Kadarius Toney, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, MVS, Juju. Where are we going, man? Like, I know that was long-winded, but I love all these like backup KC guys, because guess who's throwing the ball? Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, just Eli Apple, he's been running his mouth on Twitter a lot this week, talking some shit, and well deserved. The team's been performing, but Eli Apple has been known to blow coverage, and I do think that there's an opportunity for that to be taken advantage of. Juju, all of these guys, every single one of these wide receivers is priced well enough that 50 yards and a touchdown is good enough to end up being a decent score. I mean, you get 12 points from Juju at 4,700. That might be exactly what you need on a 2-game slate with limited options. So once again, the simple answer is all these guys are in play because Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball and he looks like he's going to be trending up. But there's still some question marks on this Bengals secondary. Eli Apple specifically, that he can blow coverage, man. We see it all the time. But, again, maybe I was a little too hasty to say that I don't want 80% Tony. 3,700, man, it's just hard not to. Like, can you imagine Eli Apple trying to tackle Kadarius Toney in the open field? Like, that's guaranteed touchdown, right? Like, that's like Derrick Henry and Josh Norman type shit almost. Yeah. Like, I don't know, man. And it at 3,700, 10 points even is probably enough to get us a little bit of flexibility. And again, would you rather play him or play 5,200 or 5,300 Jerick McKinnon? And well, it looks like the field's already answering that they want to play Jerick McKinnon. Yeah. But I still think Tony's lower risk than McKinnon with not quite the same upside, but he can absolutely have a 2-touchdown game. So, look, I think the way I rank the wide receivers here would probably be Juju 1, just because he's wide receiver 1. Toney would be 2. And then I think I'd sprinkle in these backups. You got Sky Moore, Watson, and even Mecole Hardman, if he is active, I might be a little bit more hesitant on, but we saw him have a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown earlier on in the season. So, look, all these guys are going to get involved. A team that's going to allow big plays. If one burnt secondary member turns into a touchdown against an offense like this. So you think it's Moore, you play him. You think it's Watson, you play him. So I'll have exposure to these guys. And, just as we said before, punting at 3K here is a lot safer than punting at 4,500 or 4,100. So I'd still be more comfortable with one of these guys getting a 3 than Miles Sanders getting a 1.5.
And I am a little interested in Steve Irwin here. One last point about Kadarius Toney. He's gotten like 10 fantasy points pretty much over the last few weeks, and he hasn't really done anything. He's been on the field 25% of the time, and he hasn't really done much, and he's still gotten 10 fantasy points. The way they're utilizing him, you're right, man. If McKinnon, this could be an opportunity. If you don't want to play McKinnon, Kadarius Toney could be the guy that actually gets that output. All right, let's move on, man. We're talking a lot here, but hey, we want to get deep into this. So we're going to tight ends. So this is going to be another 2 tight end slate. You're going to see a majority of the lineups have a second tight end in that flex position, because guess what? We got Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, and Hayden Hurst. Yeah, maybe I'll leave Hayden Hurst out of that, but he's a good value. You got 3 dudes who are some of the top tight ends in the league. Look, man, that's a lot of white guys. I will say that, but hey, you're gonna have to play 2 of these white dudes, most likely. And if you wanted to get different, maybe you go Kittle and Goddard, or maybe you go Kelsey and Kittle. Not a lot of people are going to be playing Kelsey and Kittle because they just can't afford it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a great way to get different. Again, we just talked over some 3K guys that I'm interested in. Even Kadarius Toney at 3,700 is going to give you enough value to maybe get up to these guys. But look, I think all these guys are in play. Travis Kelsey is probably one of the best play on the slate behind Jamar Chase, in my opinion. George Kittle at 5,200 is probably too cheap. I mean, did they price anybody outside of Christian McCaffrey out of the 5,000s? Like for the Niners, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
They're all just in that mid price level. Dallas Goddard at 4,100. Even Hayden Hurst, man, at 3K. I think a very interesting stack is Goddard and Hurst, and then you just pay up literally everywhere else.
yeah.
And then injuries, we talked about it. If Hayden Hurst is out for whatever reason, I think Mitchell Wilcox becomes an elite play. I do think that he is in play a little bit. We saw him get some targets on Sunday. I think you're probably going to be looking at him more on Showdown, but 2,500, I don't hate him. And that goes with anybody on Kansas City that plays tight end as well. I don't give a shit what their name is. If they're 2,500 and Pat is throwing them the ball, they're pretty much in play.
Look, the Bengals, not that I'm not interested in Kelsey. Obviously, I am. But the Bengals are really good against tight ends this year. The third in rating against tight ends, and they've only given up 3 touchdowns this year. That game they played in Week 13, Kelsey didn't have a bad game, by any means. But, he had 56 yards. That actually kind of is a bad game. I think he had a fumble in that game, too. 6 targets, 4 catches, 56 yards, no touchdowns, and he did have a fumble, 8 fantasy points. That's one of his lowest outputs on the season, probably in multiple seasons. So if there's any game where you're like, hey, Kelsey, I don't know that I'm super interested in him, you could get a ton of leverage by saying, forget about Kelsey. Let's go get Jamar Chase. Let's go get some of these other dudes. And you could stack Kittle and Goddard. You could stack Goddard and Hurst, Kittle, that kind of thing. Now, last week, I had brought up, one of the things that kind of screwed me for my tournament lineups was I made a dumb decision to say, you know what? Everybody and their brother is going to be playing 2 tight ends. I'm just not going to do that because there's a ton of wide receivers on that Sunday slate, like Diggs and all these other guys that are very interesting. I'm just going to rely on one of those wide receivers to end up in the flex and have a pretty decent game. Those Buffalo guys got shut down and didn't work out for me. We had a ton of tight ends doing well. In this particular case, if you wanted to get different, maybe you could do something like that. But I just don't recommend it. I feel like because of the pricing on these guys, if you play Goddard and Kittle together or something to that effect, the chances that they don't at least pay their salary off and at least get you min cash is probably pretty low. Dallas Goedert, 4,100. He has the best point per dollar output on this entire slate, and he's probably going to be one of the top 2 or 3 highest owned players on the slate. Goddard to me is super interesting. Are you super high on Goddard? Are you feeling that whole like 60% ownership that he possibly could be getting?
I don't know about 60, 65, but I'll probably have around 40 to 50. Most of my lineups will end up being two tight end lineups, and that's mainly because I want Kelsey plus one of these other guys. But again, I will have some Goddard Hurst stacks as well.
All right, let's go to defense. So this is going to be interesting here. So 49ers are 3K, Eagles 28, Chiefs 25, Bengals 23. The ownership is very, basically all these teams are pretty relatively high owned. I don't know who's going to be the highest owned. If I had to choose one, I'd probably pick in the Eagles here, going up against a rookie quarterback. In my opinion, that game is probably going to be a little bit more of a defensive struggle. When you have this KC Cincinnati game, that's probably, in my opinion, going to be a shootout or at least hit the over. Who's your favorite defense here? But, in asking that, we're going to want to really spread out and probably max these defenses at like 30% each and just let the chips fall where they may, right?
Yeah, man, I think I'll be rotating kind of just, I guess, between the Eagles and the Bengals. I like the Chiefs, 2,500. They'll be fine too. But I think the Bengals have a chance to kind of be one of the $2,300. I don't think that they're gonna be outscored by enough by the Chiefs or Eagles or whatever to make it worth it. For me, it's going to be as simple as building the entire team, and if I have 2,800 left, then I'll go with whatever defense I think. Just like if you're running the Philly defense, don't have Brock Purdy stacked with 4 Niners, right? That's pretty much what I'm going to be trying to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. The defense is going to be kind of tough. I do feel like if I'm building cash, it's probably Eagles, but I'm not afraid to play the Bengals. If you could fit in a guy that elevates your raw point total a little higher, you might want to just play the Bengals. It's scary going up against Patrick Mahomes, the best offense in the league, but at the end of the day, you're going to need some sacks and potentially a pick six or a kickoff return or something to that effect. All right. So we're going to build lineups here. So this is kind of what Ellie and I built as sort of a cash-ish sort of build based on the information we have now with ownership. To me, I feel like I want to play Joe Burrow at quarterback for cash just because of his price tag, and I feel like he has a pretty high floor. Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, yeah, he's a great option, but he's going up against San Francisco. I'd rather just play Joe Burrow here. But if you're listening on the podcast version, we have Joe Burrow, McCaffrey, McKinnon, T. Higgins, Deebo Samuel, Tyler Boyd, Kelsey, Goddard, and Eagles. Now, there's some variations you can do here, but what jumps out to you here, Ellie? What can we change that could kind of make this a little bit more comfortable? Because, yeah, we got a guy like Tyler Boyd here. We don't have Jamar Chase. Well, because we're playing Kelsey, because we're playing some of these other dudes. How can we adjust this that can maybe make us feel a little bit more comfortable? Can we get Jamar Chase in here?
Yeah, but real quick. So, Jerick McKinnon, I know we talked a lot about him, not necessarily being a primary play for us, but we're building this cash lineup because our GPP, we're probably going to have 0% exposure. He's going to be projected 50 plus percent ownership, right? So that's how we'll hedge. We'll run this in a cash or something similar. But yeah, I think, a way you can kind of come off of this, you got to find some other value here, but you probably need to drop from Deebo, and then maybe go up from Higgins to Jamar Chase somehow. Let's see. Can we get to Chase and then what, Tony and
well look, let's bring this up because I feel like getting the raw points and playing a guy like Tony or one of these punts, it may be worth it in a 2-gamer. If this was like a full 10 game or whatever, then hell no, I'm not playing that. But in this situation, like throwing a guy like Tony in at 3,700, that leaves you 3,800 for this last spot. You're probably stuck playing a guy like Tyler Boyd as well, but I don't hate that. You get McCaffrey, you get Jamar Chase, and you get Kelsey. Those are the guys with probably the highest floors and at the same time probably the highest ceilings. So you probably want to get those guys involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I actually don't mind that. Chase and Tyler Boyd stacked together. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. Let's build tournament lineup here. So let's just go down the list. Let's start with Patty Mahomes. Let's build a tournament lineup with Patty. So let's just start with his stack. We don't have to put Kelsey in here, but we can. Obviously, it's probably a good idea. But what do you want to do? You want to do Kelsey and Tony?
Yeah, let's go Kelsey and Tony.
All right. Kadarius Tony, man. Let's do it.
Throw in Jamar Chase.
All right, Jamar Chase. And then look, we got to get McCaffrey here, most likely. Let's see where that puts us. So probably, you could go Hayden Hurst if you wanted to save $1,100 over Goddard. But if we're gonna pull Goddard, I really feel like we got to get AJ Brown or Devontae Smith in this lineup. There's no chance that the Eagles do not utilize those guys at all, and they don't end up with at least like 10, 15 fantasy points. So, Devontae Smith saves you $200, or you go AJ Brown here, but it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be real tight. What do you think?
Yeah, throw in Devontae and let's see what we can do.
All right, so we're at the punt. I feel like we got Patty Mahomes. We don't need to play like a guy like Pacheco. You're probably punting here. You're probably doing like a P. Ryan. You're probably doing the Eli Mitchell. But I don't know that I want to put Eli Mitchell and McCaffrey together at this point, considering they're both Q tag.
I don't think I don't think it's enough of a punt, man. Just put in Pirine.
All right, let's put P right in. And nothing. We can't do that. It's gonna be tough. So
Let's go Goddard over Hurst and pull out Devontae Smith.
okay.
Let's see.
So, now we're looking at let's pick our defense here so we have a better idea. What is it so far with this lineup? What does that say to us? We probably want to go with at least Philly or San Francisco in this
Yeah, let's go Philly.
All right, Philly. So it leaves us 4,200 a pop. I think we're okay. Let's get our wide receiver first and see where that puts us if we want to really, really punt here. What do you think, man? Tyler Boyd, Ayuk?
Yeah, throw in Tyler. Let's throw in Tyler Boyd and see what we have left over. I think we're still going to be tight. 4,600. Is that enough for Pirine?
It is. So Patty Mahomes, CMC, P. Ryan, Tony, Jamar Chase, Boyd, Kelsey, Goddard, Eagles. It's not bad.
This is an asshole stack for that second game, though. You got Pat, Tony, Kelsey running it back with P. Ryan, Chase, and Tyler Boyd. I like it. I'll do that. That's the kind of lineup that I like, though.
Yeah. That's the kind of crazy shit you can do in a 2-gamer. That's why we're doing these 2-gamer shows, because this shit's fun. Let's go with Jalen Hurts here. I want to put these two dudes with him. Let's fade Goddard in this lineup, and let's put in. Now we're probably gonna have to make a decision here. We're probably gonna have to pick between Kelsey or CMC. In my opinion, man, I'm going CMC here.
Yeah, let's go CMC, and then if we're fading Kelsey, you want to see if we can try and get Joe Mixon in.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then. Damn, can we Hayden Hurst is our tight end, probably.
Yeah.
Can we get Kittle?
Dude, we have to find a way to get Kittle, because I think he's going to be one of the lowest owned tight ends, which is fucking nuts.
Okay, throw in the Cincinnati defense.
5,100 wide receiver that gets us Juju, Ayuk, Boyd, Tony. I mean, Ayuk here, Debo. Well, that's maybe too much. That's maybe too much. Juju.
Juju.
Yeah, Juju. You could obviously do a guy like Tyler Boyd here. We don't have any. We have Hayden Hurst, but we don't really have any other pass catchers on that side of it. That's pretty nice, man. That's not bad. You could come up from the Bengals. You could do a lot of
Hayden
stuff
Hurst
here.
And move Kittle into tight end.
Let's do that
with this same lineup. Yeah, let's see what that gives us.
Love that.
On the flex.
Kittle tight end, 4,300 at the flex. Goddard. I mean, you could. I don't hate that. You could do that. Who else do we got here? Who's interesting?
Not really anybody. It's just wide receivers.
Bunch of wide receivers. I mean, look, you could still get MVS. Yeah. You can get Tony. Like, you can put Tony in here. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right, let's build. Who's next? Let's go Burrow. Let's build with Burrow here. All right, we got to put Jamar Chase. Let's just try Chase and Higgins together.
Okay.
Let's fade Joe Mixon, and at this point, we're gonna have to make probably the decision between McCaffrey and Kelsey. But also, actually, let's just try both. Let's see if we can do it. All right, 3,600 a pop. So we're gonna have to punt twice. What do you think about? You want to put defense in here? You want to find your value? You want to go with like Hayden Hurst here?
Yeah, let's go Hayden Hurst. Let's put in Justin Watson too, a wide receiver, or Sky Moore. I don't give a shit. One of the 3K guys.
All right, I'm putting Sky Moore in because I just have to at this point.
Throw in the Philly defense.
Okay, 5,600 at running back. McKinnon, Pacheco. Yeah. Now, Burrow, Higgins, Chase, and Hurst. Yeah, maybe that's a little too heavy. Could be. What if we let's switch that out? Let's try somebody else in the flex here. Who do we need? What are we missing? We're missing some Philly guys. Dude. Let's
Goddard.
do Goddard. And let's see what that gets us here. P. Ryan.
Sure. I don't hate it. I mean, at least you're not dependent upon Joe Burrow necessarily for P. Ryan.
Yeah. All right. You could definitely make some adjustments here. You could also do this: go from Higgins to Boyd, and you could probably come up off of Sky Moore. Can we go with Tony? 5,400, McKinnon, Pacheco.
Yeah,
whoever you want.
That's more comfortable.
I'm playing Pacheco here probably though. All right, let's try with our boy, man. Let's try Purdy. Let's see what we can do.
That was damn near the cash build we had. All right, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon.
Yep. Chase.
Let's go Jamar Chase, yeah, and then Debo.
Can we do Kelsey too?
Yeah, do Kittle, Kelsey.
I don't think we can do Kittle though. I don't think we can. We got 3,700 pop. 9,600. Shit, man. Let's go Bengals defense just to save some money here. We could do it, dude. We could do it.
Sky Moore.
Let's punt with Sky Moore, or you could go with what's his bucket, Justin Watson. Let's go Sky Moore just because that's what we're doing. Fuck it, Tony. You could do Tony here too. Oh man. I don't hate it. Instead of Tony, let's put in Tyler Boyd here, though, just to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, this gives you a lot of flexibility. If you wanted to be less weird than us, you can obviously get Debo Samuel in that lineup.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Sorry,
that's one thing that we didn't get Debo in these non stacks, or we didn't get Debo in the 49er stack there, which we should have done. But don't forget about Debo. He's probably the best point per dollar play on the slate, him and Goddard. Do not forget about Debo. So what did you learn, Ellie? That was actually pretty damn easy. Compared to those showdown lineups that we were building earlier, we were struggling with being comfortable with some of those builds. I'm comfortable with a lot of these builds. Probably because we're stupid enough to play Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Justin Watson, some of these one-off KC guys that we don't necessarily need to play them with Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So look, I think studs and punts is a great way to build on Sunday, but if you want to try something a little bit more balanced, I also think that that's an easy way to build as well. You saw what we did with the Brock Purdy lineup. That wasn't necessarily balanced because we paid up for everything and then punted twice, but you could see very clearly, you just fade one of those high-end dudes and you could probably end up with a bunch of 4,500 to 5K price players. So you're right, man. I think this is a lot easier building on this 2-gamer versus the showdowns. Those showdowns were rough, but hopefully we can get a little bit different with some of the ideas that we talked about today. If
you guys are interested in checking out those showdown slates, as soon as I click the button here and go to the thumbnail for the YouTube video, you'll see both of those videos pop up. Go ahead and click on those if you want to watch them. Hit like for us, subscribe. For the Super Bowl, I guess we have to call it the big game or whatever the fuck they want us to call it. We're gonna do a first look probably right off the bat as soon as we figure out who's in the Super Bowl. We're gonna start doing some XFL stuff for you guys if you're interested in that. If you want to get your football fix in for DFS, we're doing XFL on Draftkings. So hit that subscribe button. I know the football season is coming to an end, but we got a lot of stuff going on here. We're going to be doing NBA as well. Ellie is the man at NBA, so we're going to be doing probably some live shows with that. So we appreciate you guys. Ellie, you got anything to say as we head out?
No, man. Have a great weekend, everyone. If you need anything, hop in the Discord. We'll be answering questions up until the games start.
We'll see you guys later, man.